Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is Unsung Hollywood Season 3. And this episode is about the multi-talented Wayne Brady. I am a huge fan of Wayne Brady. I definitely loved the little skit that he did on the Dave Chappelle show. Is Wayne Brady gonna have to choke a bitch? I swear, I used to have the Chappelle show on DVD, and I admit every time I would watch that, I would literally be in tears laughing because Wayne Brady literally flipped the script on his head, and they talk in this episode of what led to that historic moment where he played that skit with Dave Chappelle on the Chappelle show, and it was just hilarious. I mean, every part of it, I laughed, but I was even, a fan of him when he was on Whose Line Is It Anyway? I remember there was this comedy show, this comedy cop show. I forgot the name of it that came on VH1. I remember watching him on that. I used to love him on that too, where they would be doing all of these different, pop songs and stuff. It was pretty cool. I mean, and this was a great episode. Gary Anthony Williams, Guy Torrey, Aisha Tyler were some of the commentators on it. And then he also talks about how, his career has been somewhat of a blessing, but also a curse, because here it is, when he first broke out into the mainstream white audience, but then yet a lot of blacks started to reject him. Kind of similar to what happened to Whitney Houston, where you get the immediate mainstream audience, but then yet your black audience is not fully receiving you because they're labeling you a sellout. And definitely they play that Paul Mooney joke that he did on the Dave Chappelle show, where he says that white people love Wayne Brady. They love Wayne Brady makes Brian Gumbel look like Malcolm X. And Wayne Brady hated that joke, and he hated it because he says that it really just goes against who he is as a black man, because regardless of whether he's mainstream or not, he's still black at the end of the day. And we definitely seen throughout this episode that he was actually a groundbreaking artist, in comedy, because he paved the way for many others that followed him. So here it was. He was, a pioneer in his style of comedy, but yet was attacked because he didn't go through the Chitlin circuit. But then they also talk about, his issues with depression and also, thoughts of suicide. So I definitely related to that because I also suffer from clinical depression, and that was very important that he shared this in this episode, because there's a lot of people who suffer from clinical depression who don't really know how to deal with it, and they don't have the right resources around them or the right people. And I want to be somebody that also becomes someone that also openly speaks about depression, and that it's real and it's not something to take lightly. They talk about his upbringing. He was born in Columbus, Georgia. His father was in the military, and his mom was a 16-year-old high school student. He was born with a collapsed lung, and the doctor told her that if he, because it was up in the air whether he would survive or not. And the doctor told his mother that if he survives by the next day, he's going to be a mighty, mighty man. And he survived. And as we see throughout his career, he's proven to be a mighty force. So after he was born, his father had to report overseas. And due to the fact that his mom was a teenager, she couldn't raise a child on her own. So Wayne Sr. Sent the baby to live with his parents, who I think lived in Orlando, Florida. And he pretty much was raised in a stable home with his grandparents. They lived in an area called Tangelo Park, which was the hood. Um, but you know, because of them being in a bad area, his grandparents were very strict. He couldn't hang out outside and things like that. So he said being inside all the time, it actually fueled his creativity. And you know, one of his idols definitely was Sammy Davis Jr. And I definitely seen that in Wayne Brady. I mean, the fact that he can sing, he can dance, he can act, and he can also do comedy. You know, we all know that Sammy Davis Jr. was a jack of all trades, and Wayne Brady's no exception. And then he also talks about him, you know, being teased by other kids because his family originally originally from the Virgin Islands. So because he had an accent, you know, kids kind of picked on him, and then also because he was dark skinned, you know, was another reason why kids taunted him as well. But then he said he was blessed to get into one of these gifted programs where he was able to, which actually got him into a better school, you know, outside of his area, it was pretty much a majority white school. And then, like, he was saying that he would get around some of these white kids. He was like, oh, so you're from Tangelo Park. So does your mom sell crack? You know, he kind of joked with it, but he said that pretty much in this situation, he had to deal with what they call double consciousness. Because here it is, you're in this white area being exposed to things that you never would have been exposed to if you stayed in the hood. But then you have to go back in the hood and you have to, you know, blend in with that crowd, but then go to the white crew and blend with that crowd. It's definitely this double consciousness that a lot of us as African Americans have to deal with in America, and he pretty much showcased this, like, you know, being going from one community to another that were completely worlds apart. And he said that he got his big opportunity where there was I think somebody who they couldn't fulfill a role in the play. He got the role, and you know, he took off, you know, and he was named the best student actor and singer, you know. So he excelled in high school because of theater and acting, and he went to college, but then he dropped out, and you know, just, you know, because he wanted to pursue his career full time. And he talks about him working at Walt Disney World. He worked at Universal Studios. He did bar mitzvahs. He did cruises. He did everything he could, you know, to hone his talent. And then he found the SAC Theater Troupe, which I didn't even know that Jonathan Magnum, who actually works with him now on Let's Make a Deal, that they knew each other way back when. So Jonathan, in a way, kind of grew up with him in his career. So that was cool to know that Jonathan has been with Wayne from day one. And Jonathan, my grandmother, God rest her soul, she loved Jonathan on Let's Make a Deal. I think there was one show where both Wayne and Jonathan were acting like, I think they were acting like fortune tellers or genies or whatever. And the both of them were just playing off of each other. They had me and my grandmother in tears. We were laughing so hard. Especially with Jonathan, because Jonathan makes very good facial expressions. And I was just laughing. I'm like, Jonathan, I'm definitely a fan. So so pretty much he started off like with this SAC theater group. And then you know, at 21, so therefore they would do a lot of skits, you know, based off of, you know, old TV shows and things like that. So it was pretty much like an improv, and that's where he got his start with the SAC theater troupe. At 21, he gets married to a dancer, but the marriage doesn't last. So then he ends up moving to Hawaii, where he meets Mandy, who pretty much I would pretty much say was the love of his life. Him and Mandy just instantly clicked, and he said that, it's amazing when you find somebody that has your back 100%. And he said he found that in Mandy. And Mandy, comes off as a very sweet and endeared woman. So definitely they clicked, and and he decided that he wanted to go to LA to really try his luck and really making it, and Mandy followed him. And they talked about how they struggled where they didn't have enough money to pay the lights and didn't have enough money to pay the water bill, but it was an adventure because they both were pursuing their career endeavors, and she was a dancer. But then he said that he was out there hustling, making animal balloons, doing whatever he could to keep him going. But he said the thing that kept him going was his passion, because passion leads to greatness. So when people tell you to follow your passions, that's exactly what you better do. Because later on, Jonathan, who was a part of him with the SAC Theater Troupe, they moved to LA to pursue better opportunities as well, and they went from the SAC Theater Troupe to they now became the House Full of Hunkies, whereas Wayne was the only black guy there, and then it came to auditions. They were doing a UK version of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Him along with some of the other members of the House of Hunkies audition. Wayne was the only one that got a role. And we actually see, if you watched him on Whose Line Is It Anyway, he is a master at improving. You can give him a subject, you give him an idea, and he will create a masterpiece out of it. And it takes true talent and a true gift to be able to do that, because not everybody can improv. So I have to say that Wayne's Brady talent was seen very early, and it was seen by a mainstream audience. So even though he was getting well known in London, being on the UK version of Whose Line Is It Anyway, in LA he still didn't have a fan base. But then they decided that they were going to do a spin-off on it in America, where Drew Carey was going to be the host, and he gets on Whose Line Is It Anyway with Drew Carey, and he becomes, the black face of improv, which was groundbreaking because he was the only black guy doing that kind of comedy, and he was a beast at it. It hit prime time. They were getting 80 million viewers. So here it is. He was getting a mainstream audience, being a black man, but also being a black man that was in a different level of comedy that some other black comedians weren't a part of. But then, even though, he had this great break, a lot of acts in the black community, even fellow comedians, were saying that, you sold out, you're not black enough, and, well, you need to be authentically black, and, you had other comedians like Guy Torrey and Daryl J. Littlejohn, who was saying that because he didn't come through the same route as a lot of other black comedians, he was pretty much a target, and a lot of other fellow black artists were shooting him down. When yet Guy was even saying that it was messed up because we didn't see the fact that Wayne is talented, and he's incredibly talented, and that's why he broke out in the mainstream first. The same thing with Whitney Houston. Whitney was a phenomenal talent. So when you have that type of level, when you have that level of talent, mainstream is gonna definitely gravitate towards it because it's groundbreaking and it's new. But then they also said that a lot of reason why a lot of black people were coming after him was because they were jealous. Yeah, because they wish they had that they had that platform. Um, but then after doing, Whose Line Is It Anyway, he ends up doing a developmental deal where he ends up getting his own show. I think it was on, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was ABC. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. But he ends up getting his own show, The Wayne Brady Show. And, he ends up, him and Mandy end up getting married. And they have a daughter, Miley. And his daughter is really cute. And he has a great relationship with his daughter. So pretty much he ends up, having the Wayne Brady Show, which is like a talk show, and this was following after Rosie O'Donnell. He filled that slot. And here it is, he's doing Whose Line Is It Anyway, and has his own talk show. So he's now, a force in daytime as well as prime time. And for 2 consecutive years, he's won Emmys in both. So he won 2 Emmys, per year. So he ended up winning 4 Emmys, for both, his talk show as well as Whose Line Is It Anyway. So he was probably one of the first, actually probably one of the first black acts to win 2 Emmys within the same year, one for daytime and one for prime time. And then consecutively the next year he got Emmys again in those same 2 categories. So he's pretty much killing it, and then also, in 2004 he actually becomes the first African American to actually host the Miss America pageant. And then he also talks about where he started to have issues on the Wayne Brady Show where, they pretty much kind of had those conditions where he was the chosen black guy. And there were a lot of things he wanted to do on his show, but they were constantly shooting him down, and they wanted him to go more into like this white bread approach to doing the show. And eventually he decided to part ways with them. And that's when he decided to walk away from the Wayne Brady Show, because if he couldn't authentically do things he wanted to do and really showcase things the way he wanted it, then what's the point? So, and, Guy Torry even mentioned that, a lot of people didn't even realize that a lot of the things that he was doing, he had to fight to do those things. Nothing was handed to him. He didn't have it easy. He worked hard for everything he had. And I thought that was real. And then, they definitely talked about the Paul Mooney joke that he did. That Paul Mooney has that brand of comedy where he's known to slice and dice people. And I'm a fan of Paul Mooney too. Paul Mooney is definitely one of my faves. I'm definitely a huge fan of his. But when he made that joke about Wayne Brady, Wayne Brady's like, Brian Gumbel trying to be Malcolm X, he really took offense to that, and he was saying that he was really offended by that, because he says that here it is, I'm a black man who has busted my ass to get to where I am, and yet I'm still being told I'm not black enough, when you look at me, I'm black. Being black is not what you try to be, it's who you are. Even myself, I can be in a room full of white people, I'm still going to be a black man at the end of the day. That's not going to change. So Dave Chappelle, after, Paul Mooney had did that sketch on his show, he reaches out to Wayne Brady and he's like, look, man, I didn't write the sketch, but if you want to do a sketch on my show, I'm open to collaborate. So they do, and we get that infamous sketch where he's riding around with Wayne Brady throughout the hood. Wayne Brady's doing all this kind of shit. They taking bitch from Training Day where he's making Dave Chappelle do drugs. He's collecting money from prostitutes, and then one of the girls came up short and he's like, is Wayne Brady gonna have to choke a bitch? Like just classic. And then one of my favorite scenes was when he gets pulled over by the police And the police guy, the white police officer, recognizes him, and Wayne Brady gets a microphone and starts breaking out singing "Say a Little Prayer." And the cop was like, "Oh my God, I love you, Wayne Brady. I can't wait to tell my wife." He's like, "You ain't gonna tell your wife nothing." He's like, "Well, why not?" He's like, "Cause ain't nobody gonna know about it, bitch." And then he breaks the guy's neck. I was like, "Oh my God." It still chuckles me even as of now. I mean, it just goes to show his creative genius, but then yet that gave him street cred. You know, people looked at Wayne Brady totally differently after that. But me personally, I liked it Wayne Brady regardless whether he did this Dave Chappelle shit. But him doing this Dave Chappelle part made me even a bigger fan of his, because I was cracking up. Like, and he shot, and then he shoots like Dave Chappelle's like, "I'm Wayne Brady, bitch." Like, it was just hilarious. And we definitely see that gave new light to his career, because he ended up getting in the movie Roll Bounce and Crossover. He even did, he was even on Wildin' Out with Nick Cannon. So it really broadened, his audience even more so. But then I think what ended up happening was that all of this backlash that he had gotten started to get to him, where he was doing this Star late night improv show in Vegas, and afterwards he was literally saying like, okay, if people want to think this about Wayne Brady and think that about Wayne Brady, I'm gonna show them something different. So Wayne talks about how he started wilding out, drinking, women, things just got crazy, and it gets to the point where him and Mandy end up divorcing, because it got to the point where they no longer were in the same space anymore. But then again, they have a great relationship, and they both co-parent their daughter, and they still are the best of friends, and she's also his business partner. So that was remarkable to see, that even when you fall out of love with your wife and you guys divorce, you still have a great relationship, and you're still the best of friends, and you still come together to take care of your child. And he even talks about the song "You and Me," where he says that, because he said that after that they filed the divorce papers, he said he left and he just cried, but he said that the main thing that kept them going was their daughter, and that, and then his daughter, Miley, said that, yeah, I get 50-50 with both of them. They both are actively in my life. And then in 2008, he does an album. What's the name of that song? I think that song, Ordinary Life. I love that track. That was a beautiful song. I used to play that all the time, because Wayne Brady has a really good singing voice. And he even got a Grammy nomination for his remake of "A Change Is Gonna Come" by Sam Cooke. And then they were doing a revival of the show "Let's Make a Deal," and definitely that was a show that was very big, in the 60s and 70s. What was his name that did that show? Ooh, it's on the top of my head. If y'all remember, put it down in the comments. But yeah, "Let's Make a Deal" definitely had it had its own flair, where people would dress up in costumes and things like that, where at first Wayne Brady turned them down, but then Wayne Brady kind of put a spin on it, where the show would just follow him and everything he did, because Wayne Brady is a master at improv. So "Let's Make a Deal" became more of like a variety show as well as a game show. And definitely Jonathan, who was with him in the early days, was also a part of the show. And it's definitely one of the highest rated game shows on CBS, along with The Price is Right. He also won his 5th Emmy. He's also hosted the NAACP Image Awards. And then they start talking about, getting close towards his 40s, he started to notice that even though he was having all this great success, inwardly he felt low, even to the point where he was even questioning whether he even wanted to be here. And Mandy talks about, like, could you think about on your 40th birthday, instead of you celebrating your life, you're in the bathroom crying your eyes out? That's real. And that's when he instead of him constantly, instead of him staying in this state, because he noticed that this state became, it started to drain, and it wasn't getting any better. It started to get worse, and he decided to get help, and it come to find out that he was diagnosed with clinical depression. And he actually spoke about one of the great geniuses of comedy, Robin Williams, suffering from clinical depression, which led to him committing suicide. And he was saying that, I didn't want another Robin Williams, or another person who had this great comedic ability, but yet had a lot of darkness. And he was saying that, pain, staying in, pain is not a choice. It's not like you want to stay depressed. It's a condition. And it's a condition that needs either medication or needs constant therapy. Actual tools to help you to deal with your depression. And I, for one, being a person who suffers from clinical depression, I definitely related to Wayne Brady on that. And I'm so proud that this brother actually talked about this, because depression is something that's still very taboo, still somewhat taboo in the black community. And a lot of people don't like talking about it. They like to act like it's not there. And it's great that, that people like Wayne Brady and many others who have spoken out about clinical depression, another one being Jennifer Holliday, that show that, look, depression is not something to take lightly. And when you take it lightly, tragedy can happen. And also, they talk about, he even now has a black version, Improv troupe that he works with. They brought back Whose Line Is It Anyway? I remember even watching some episodes with my brother, and me and him were just tickled at Wayne Brady, because Wayne Brady is like one of the best at improv. And then he also says that I want to be the face for those young people out there who are picked on or dismissed, and because they're different. And they're taught that being different is bad, but yet being different means you're remarkable. And that definitely hit true to me, because I was definitely one of those kids. So that's what I have, y'all. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to talk to you about it. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you can get notifications every time I drop a video. Also, follow me on all of my social platforms. I have them all listed in the description box. Also, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I'll be back with the next episode of Unsung Hollywood. So until next time, everybody, take care.